Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
I've been going out with a girl, her name is Julie, but last night she said to me when we were watching telly.
Could be Jill's in Isha. Jill, what would you like to say? How could she have done it better?
Oh, good morning. Quite simply, by just not being so pusillanimous.
Go on.
She should have just gone in there and she should have said, we're leaving, right, these are the deals, this is what we're going to do, and walked away and said, take it or leave it.
She has done that.
So... No,
that's what Article 50 is.
Pathetic. No. She has
I apologise for interrupting you, but let's just get some facts on the table. Yes, I am, but because it's very important that my listeners aren't misled. Article 50 puts a 2-year limit on leaving. She triggered it much quicker than most people thought she should have done, so she gave them the message that we would walk away much earlier than anybody else would have advised. And the second point is the red lines that she's put in place about the things we will not compromise on tell them exactly where we stand. The problem is, Jill, and your analysis perhaps has to ignore this point, is the European Union didn't blink.
But what have we got to lose? You know, the problem is she should have got real
freedom of movement, between 28 countries, access to the largest single market in the world, membership of the largest single market in the world, freedom to trade with the largest single market in the world, plus the treaties delivered. No, you asked me a question. What have we got to lose, Jill?
No, you asked me a question and interrupted my answer.
Because you were telling porkies.
No, I was not.
So how could she have triggered Article 50 sooner?
She could have done it the next day.
So you think she should have done it even sooner?
She should, yeah, absolutely.
Right, and how would that have been different?
And said, but she's the pathetic way she's going about.
Yes, but these are just adjectives. We're dealing in substance.
No, yes, well, we want to do this. We want to be this. You know, I want somebody in the true Remain camp like yourself. Give me a good reason why we should say. You keep saying to me, but if it's Brexit, we're falling off a cliff. We're not going to do this. We're not going to do that. You know, what's going to happen? Could you tell me what would happen if we stayed in the EU?
Yes, your life would be exactly the same as it is now.
No, it wouldn't. No, it wouldn't, because they're starting. We would have unlimited immigration. I don't care about immigration. That's not why I voted.
Well, tell me what you do care about, Jill. Otherwise, this is going to be a slightly odd exchange.
Right? Yes. I care that there are 751 MEPs that are transported every month 400 kilometres between Brussels and Strasbourg.
You asked me what...
No,
I said things would stay the same, and you said they wouldn't.
Yes.
So what would be different then?
Well, because they're insisting that we would have to be part of the euro. I don't want.
No, we wouldn't. We don't have to be part of the euro. Anyone who told you that lied to you. Next.
Well, that's what you believe.
No. That is recorded fact.
No, that is what you think.
Okay, so you think that the United Kingdom could have been forced to join the euro? I can't. I love you, Jill. You're a lovely, lovely woman. But if you say things that are demonstrably untrue and then just get louder when I point out that they're demonstrably untrue, I think we let our listeners down.
I hate the fact that you say all I voted Brexit was because I wanted a blue passport.
I've never met you, Jill.
I think... No, you generalise on the whole...
Well, tell me what you did vote for, then.
Well, I've just told you, and you keep interrupting
No,
me.
you told me that you don't like the number of MEPs, but that was in response to asking me what would have happened if we'd remained. I said things would stay the same, and you started talking about 751 MEPs. I don't want to embarrass you, Jill, but all I can do is repeat your words back to you.
You're not embarrassing me at all.
Well, that's a relief.
You're embarrassing yourself.
You're absolutely right.
Your comments are so pathetic that you think there would be...
Who's more pathetic, me or Theresa May? Who's more pathetic?
You're both pathetic.
Okay. Well, can I be more pathetic?
I wasn't going to be, actually. I wanted to be really nice. I didn't want to.
Still free to be nice, Jill. It's not my fault. It's not. I have no control over what you see in the mirror.
But you want to be ruled by unelected bureaucrats in Brussels, do you?
Well, you want to be ruled by Theresa May, who you think is pathetic and pusillanimous.
You know, I really was angry the day that they got her.
So you voted Corbyn, did you?
Furious. No, I didn't.
Oh, I thought not. It's 11:02.
Joan has called from Putney, nearby. Hello, Joan.
Oh, hello.
I just wanted to say, Sheila, that whenever this subject of Brexit comes up, it distresses me, and I often turn off LBC only on those occasions, because today we're talking about whether Theresa May can win when it comes to Europe. And for me, it's not about whether Theresa May can win because of Europe. We're having problems with Europe, and the people who are creating the problems are the people who are criticizing them. And they are headed by a parliament of traitors. And that is that is just plain speaking. I heard the person just talking that they've been called mutineers and so on. Well, they are.
Why, Joan? Why? Can I just ask you though? Why do you think that on the subject of Brexit, that continuing to air your view politically, socially, is treacherous? It's conversation, isn't it?
I'll tell you why, Sheila. Because Parliament voted 6-1 to have this referendum, and they lost. And if they had won, everything would have been fine. It would have been democratic. We'd carry on the way. But they lost.
Well, we're not talking.
And they lost because. And now they're creating these problems. And to me, it is not about Brexit anymore. It's about democracy.
Well, but Joan, it isn't.
They are in contempt of democracy.
But the conversation that we are having this hour isn't really about what Parliament. I mean, we will later in the week, as it happens, have a conversation about the next stage in Parliament. We're talking specifically about the Conservative Party, and the people like Nicky Morgan, for example. She just hasn't. She didn't want Brexit, but she's committed to supporting the Prime Minister to do what the British people have asked her to do in the referendum. So she is prepared to see Brexit through, Nicky Morgan, even though she didn't vote for it. She just has a view on how that should happen. That's not treacherous. That's politics.
It is because from they lost, they have been creating delays and amendments and trying to subvert it. And what they should have done
is sovereignty, Joan. It's parliamentary sovereignty, the very thing you want, I think.
Not parliamentary sovereignty, parliamentary democracy. And we're not having that here.
No, we are. That's exactly what it is. You presumably voted leave in part because you wanted sovereignty back in Westminster, in Britain.
No, I voted because I wanted independence. It's not about sovereignty, because they can always say, oh, we've got pooled sovereignty. We've got sovereignty to go to war. We've got sovereignty to do this and that. I would like independence, because to me, your right to self-determination is the most precious thing.
And when we've got that, does all discussion end then?
No, not at all.
Just for now. Just for now. Discussion ends just for now.
No, because what should happen? I don't think it is good for our children or for myself to be in a relationship where the other party has control over a whole lot of your money, of who you do business with.
No, I know, but you've gone back to arguments about why you voted to leave the European Union, and that's separate to why individual MPs within the Conservative Party are absolutely allowed a view on what their own party is doing with Brexit. They're two very separate things, and I couldn't disagree with you more when it comes to their right to do so. It is not treacherous. It is weird to think that it is. But thank you for your call, Joan. Anyway, I'm sorry we distress you when we talk about Brexit, but you've kind of just distressed me as well, so it's 1-1.
Back to the idea of movies with Janet in Esher. Janet, you're on the radio. Do you like war movies?
Yes, I do, as a matter of fact.
If I were to ask you for a favourite to play out on Christmas Day, what would it be?
Well, I always liked, as a very small child for some reason, Reach for the Sky.
Oh, Douglas Bader, Kenneth Moore playing the role of Douglas Bader, the Spitfire pilot.
Yes, and my mother actually worked in the air ministry.
Oh!
And she said my late mother, she said she remembers him coming in and pleading because she was in the personnel department and she was quite young and had to handle all these sort of people and deaths and everything else. But yes, that one, I mean, was terrific. I mean, I'm sure some of it was a bit of fiction.
Oh, of course. There's always a bit of journalistic or filmmakers' license. Do you think films such as that and all the others, The Great Escape and The Longest Day, did that drive a Brexit vote, do you think?
No, because I took part in the official Leave campaign and I was phoning people every day to ask them what they thought. I've also worked in both Houses of Parliament in various guises.
Oh, really?
And my reasoning, and a lot of people's reasoning, was about Brexit, was the fact that we weren't making our own laws anymore.
Yes.
They were being nodded through Parliament. The MPs were there for less hours. And, I felt we weren't being governed properly anymore by the people we elected.
Thank you for that, Janet, and the story about Reach for the Sky. I remember watching that movie. We'll continue with this conversation. Julia's in Herne Hill. Julia, if you voted Brexit, you don't have to tell me. Was it because of a film such as The Longest Day or Guns of Navarone or whatever it might be?
No, definitely not, Nick, and thank you for taking my call. The latest films, Dunkirk and The Darkest Hour, have come out after the vote, and they've obviously caught in a little bit on the popular mood after the event. But I think the ambassador has a complex about German behaviour in Europe, as well he might have. They're still trying to destroy this country. They're being dogmatic and bossy.
How are they trying to destroy?
Worrying about the Russian threat when we should be turning our attention to the German threat.
What is the German threat as you see it?
I think that they're trying to destroy us through trade. They won't give us any leeway in Europe. And frankly, I think we should just pull away from them. And if you notice, Trump, who is half German, he never refers to his German ancestry. He goes on about how bad and unfair they are in trading with them. You can see what they've done with Volkswagen.
I mean, it's fair to say that some of the key negotiators on the EU side are Luxembourgish or Belgians.
I think Germany, we all know that Germany pulls the strings. I mean, you've only got to watch the body language. And when Cameron used to go over, he used to make me squirm the way he was taddling along behind Merkel. And she pulls the strings in Europe, there's no doubt about it. I just so relieved that we're pulling out. But it had nothing to do with the war films or anything like that. The reasons why I voted was for sovereignty and to be able to govern ourselves and not be bossed about the whole time.
Good hearing from you, Julia. Thank you.
That could be the thing to break this one wide open. How is your enjoyment of watching men drive very fast improved by very attractive young women in slinky frocks carrying umbrellas around? It's your starter for 10. John's in Le Mans, which is appropriate enough given that city's association with motor racing. John, what would you like to say?
Well, James, your opinion seems to be based on inaccurate facts.
Wouldn't be the first time, John. Please feel free to enlighten me.
I listen to you every day, so I wouldn't disagree with you on that. Good girls today have moved on. You're talking about bikinis. That goes back to the 70s. The majority of the countries that host a Grand Prix today and have the girls to do promotional work are dressed in the traditional dress of that country. That's dresses, not bikinis.
Or slinky frocks. Can we agree on that, or shall I just drop the slinky for the sake?
Slinky, yes, slinky was, but as I say, it's moved on, and people have.
Right, no, I happily accept that, but I mean, bikinis was a figure of speech. Let me just read you again what the director of Formula One commercial operations said. We feel this custom does not resonate with our brand values and clearly is at odds with modern-day societal norms. We don't believe the practice is appropriate or relevant to Formula One and its fans, old and new. You clearly think it is, so tell me why.
I read that statement the day it was published on their website. Let's just finish one other thing. The girls do not get sprayed with champagne.
Well, I've seen that happen.
There's only two. Yes, once in the last few years, Lewis Hamilton made a big mistake, and that's why it got so much publicity. He did spray a girl on a podium, and it caught her in her face. since then...
Well, no, they all get sprayed.
They don't.
Everyone gets sprayed. The other drivers get sprayed. The crowd gets sprayed. You can't be on near a podium without getting sprayed. But I suspect we're splitting hairs a bit here.
No, we're not splitting hairs. We're talking facts.
Okay. No, I'm happy to be schooled on how champagne gets sprayed at Formula One podium.
Do not pick up their bottles until the VIPs who presented the awards get ushered very rapidly off the podium, taking the 2 grid girls that are on the podium with them.
Okay, so they don't get sprayed with champagne and they don't wear bikinis, but that obviously is me not knowing a lot about Formula One.
Right.
You'll concede that the managing director of commercial operations at Formula One knows a lot about Formula One, I presume.
Well, he does now, but he's only been doing it for about 15 months.
So when he says over the last year or 15 months, we have looked at a number of areas which we felt needed updating. So, and remember, we're trying to do this in a slightly calmer way than everybody else is managing to at the moment. You disagree that any updating is needed?
Let us look at what's caused this. It started with the darts, and immediately Barry Hearn, the promoter, turned around and said, I don't agree with it, but I have no say in the matter. It is 3 television companies, Sky, BBC and ITV, who have forced this upon us. So that is why he's doing it, because the television contract holders have insisted.
Okay, but then why have they done that, do you think?
I think Liberty followed very rapidly, because Liberty, don't forget, is an American company. Mr. Bratch and his fellow directors are Americans, and they are looking over their shoulder at their home country, America, where we see a great deal of pressure, particularly with this #Me Too campaign by some very, very outspoken and very pushy ladies who are...
No, let's just back up a bit, because I don't want you to get sort of a bit pilloried for unfair reasons. Pushy ladies or victims of sex abuse, you can describe them either way round. But let me look at this from a different angle, John. Why does it... I mean, are you genuinely going to enjoy the next race less?
Obviously not. But
so then why then does... No, I want to learn from you, I really do. Why? Because I already have, I want to learn more. Why does it matter to you then? If it's not going to in any way affect your enjoyment of the sport, why does it matter to you? Well, and take a moment to answer that if you want, because I think it's probably more than Formula One, isn't it? It matters to you because it feels as if...
hang on, let's look at 2 things.
Yes.
One from Formula One.
Well, no, you. I'm very interested in you personally, because you've just said it's not going to affect your enjoyment of the sport one iota, which makes it confusing to me that you care.
I care because I worked in the sport for many years.
Yes.
I see no reason to change something which is not causing offence to the majority, it would appear, from what we're seeing on social media, of our fans.
Well, you don't want to take social media as an exercise in democracy. It's generally an exercise in who's angrier and who's more old-fashioned. But we're talking about you.
But unfortunately, you're wrong there, James, in that social media has become such an influence on our lives.
But John, if you looked at my feed, you'd think it was causing massive outrage and loads of people were really pleased about it. And if you looked at, I don't know, sort of some person who was at the President's Club dinner, their feed would probably be the opposite. But that's why I want to talk specifically to and about you.
In that case, go and look at the feeds from the websites that are specific to motorsport and Formula One, and the fans are the ones who are saying...
And that's why I'm so confused, because you've just said yourself that it's not going to affect in any way, shape or form your enjoyment of the sport. So... why does it matter to you? I think I know. Can I possibly make a suggestion? You can tell me if I'm reading it right or not.
You can.
Do you feel as if you're being implicitly insulted? It's as if they're saying this thing that you have gone along with for years and never found remotely troubling. Now you're being told that it's sexually exploitative and discriminatory, and you jolly well don't like being lumped in with those sort of accusations for the alleged apparent crime of turning up at a race where there are women in dresses and traditional clothes and not getting sprayed with champagne, but generally there to adorn the event. It feels as if someone's judging you, and that would bridle with me, and it sounds like it bridles a bit with you.
I find the whole subject at the moment, many subjects at the moment are being affected by the death of something very important in the world, which is common sense. Common sense and political correctness are destroying so many things at the moment. Now,
But this is, John, we're talking about a decision by a commercial operation to do away with something that feels a little bit old-fashioned. It's not really political correctness or common sense.
But then why is that company telling us every day that the people who they are most concerned about are the fans?
I don't think we're going to make any progress here because I can't understand why you care. And my problem is I don't really care. I just couldn't really make a good job of explaining to a 12-year-old girl why they're there. Why are they there? I don't know why they're there. They're because they look nice, aren't they? We can agree on. Let's find things we can agree on. So why are they there, John?
Why am I saying what I'm saying? Why did I call you? Because I wanted to point out to you straight away that your basic premise was totally incorrect.
Well, I'm happy to accept that. I always am. So now we're looking at why you care. So let's start with this. Why are they there?
No, forget why are they there.
It's kind of intrinsic to the entire conversation about whether they should be, isn't it, John? So why do you think they're there?
I don't think. I know they are there because they are there because they were before the statement that was made this week by Liberty. They were seen to be an intrinsic part of the show. They were not.
Well, but why are they an intrinsic part of the show? I'm not trying to trip you up or anything. I want to know why they're there. If I had to explain it to a young woman in particular or a young boy, why are they there, John?
I can only answer that one by saying, like many other sports and many other activities, it has become a tradition and a part of the show.
So why do you want them to stay there, even though you've said it won't affect your enjoyment of the show in any way, shape? I don't think that's true. I think you do like looking at them, don't you?
Why do you want them to go?
I don't have a strong view one way or the other. I'm trying to understand why they're there.
I think why are they there?
Yes, John.
I'll repeat what I said.
No, I know what you said the last time. It's not an answer to because there's loads of traditions. It used to be traditional to send kids up chimneys, but we wouldn't defend that on the grounds that we always did it. Otherwise, you'd end up being an apologist for everything from slavery to women not having the vote. So I know it went on in the past, and it looks like it's not going to go on in the future. So let's focus on the present. The last race you went to, why were they there?
Why were they there? As I said to you, and I'll repeat again...
Oh, John, you can do better than this, mate. It's not a trick question. Why are they there? What is the rationale for them being there? You can't have a rationale that just says they always were. Why are they there, John?
It is a development. They're there because it's been developed out of the original. They weren't grid girls. They were promotional girls for large corporations, mainly those selling cigarettes. And that is when you did see them rushing around in bikinis. You did see a lot of...
Well, that's not why they're there now, then, is it?
It grew into a point where... It actually grew out of America, where there were grid girls and...
Why were they there?
Cheerleaders. You'll have to ask the boss.
Well, I'm asking you because you're defending it without knowing why it exists.
I can't. Okay. Sorry, you are...
Let's not do this, John. Let's not. No, you're better than this, John. Don't start making it about me. We're talking really simply about why are they there?
Why are they there? You're also making it very difficult for me because I'm trying to explain to you what it's grown out of, and you're saying forget the past. Well, unfortunately, many things are based on the past, and they are progressions.
I completely agree with you, and that is what progress means. It's recognising that things in the past should probably be changed. I will ask you once more, and I'm sorry that you feel that this is an unfair question, but I'm only asking it again and again because I'm fascinated to hear the answer. Why are they there?
Why is the Earth round?
Okay, John.
Sorry, you cannot ask me to tell you what was in the mind of the management who were organising...
I just want your reason in your own head, because I think I know why they're there. I think they're there to sort of titillate sad old men.
Well, then maybe you're a sad old man. I don't
maybe, but at least I've got an answer to the question. Why do you think they're there?
Well, I don't think they're there to titillate sad old men.
Well, that's a no, so it's not that. We can cross that off the list. What are we going to put on the list instead?
So why shouldn't you add a bit of glamour to a sporting event?
So it is to titillate sad old men?
No, because sad old men are not...
So they're there to add glamour to a sporting event?
Yes.
Okay.
And of which many other...
No, that's fine. I got it. It wasn't difficult. It's like pulling teeth with you, John. They're there to add glamour to a sporting event, but just to clarify, your enjoyment of that sporting event is not going to be in any way diminished when they're not there. You did say that earlier, right?
I didn't say... No.
Oh, okay. Misheard.
You asked me enjoyment. I will still continue to watch the events.
But you'll enjoy it a bit less?
Not necessarily.
So you won't enjoy it less?
No.
Well, then we're all fine, John. Oh, strange process. I'm trying to write something at the moment about political correctness, and it's tough, you know, because I can't see it in the way that often older, not always people do. Maybe it's because I was too busy in the 80s, going out and enjoying myself, and for most of the 90s as well, actually. But I never really registered clamorous calls for social change. I look back on it now, and those claims that they'd banned the word blackboard in case it was racist and you weren't allowed to have Christmas. It was all nonsense. Presumably just a little bit before my time. It was all whipped up by the same newspapers for the same reasons. Don't worry about the facts. Just focus on the fury. And that now feeds into a perception that whenever anything happens that some people consider to be social progress, other people reach for the political correctness gone mad. Here is a Renault driver, Nico Hulkenberg, responding to the announcement yesterday that Formula One was doing away with grid girls. He said it would be a pity if they took the eye jewellery from the grid. And I think that's brilliant, because I think now you can pick a side. Women as eye jewellery, or no, actually, not as a career option. Adam's in Walthamstow. Adam, what would you like to say?
Hi, James. Good to talk to you again. James, I'm actually an ex-Renault Formula One driver as well. Back in 2009, I test drove for the team, and I've sort of raced in all the junior categories right up to Formula One. So I'm pretty well qualified to speak on this subject.
Well, you're pretty well qualified to speak on Formula One. I don't know how qualified you are to speak on feminism.
Maybe not feminism, but I've got a baby daughter due in a few days' time anyway.
Congratulations.
So I'll come on to that in a minute.
Yes.
Thank you. I mean, in terms of the grid girls, I mean, a lot of them are actually aspiring models. I've had plenty of conversations with them, from China to Australia, New Zealand, wherever. A lot of them have aspirations to use their looks to make a career. So I don't really see what the problem is there. Secondly, a lot of them actually get, very, very good pay for the day. A lot of them are students studying. They just want to earn a few extra quid.
I can see this defence, and I can see it clearly. But oddly, it's not me that you take that up with, really. It's Formula One, because what you're really saying now is that they shouldn't be free to make a decision like this because you've met some models.
Well, I do think Liberty Media are missing a trick, because obviously the grid girls, like Nico's, said in his Twitter post, they do add the element of they are eye candy.
Eye jewellery. Eye jewellery was the phrase.
Eye jewellery, okay, fine.
And that for me is that for me, and of course now what we end up doing as men is defending the right of women to be eye jewellery, whereas the feminist position, as I understand it, and my understanding may be meagre, the feminist position would be that it's only because of society's structures that women have ended up thinking being eye jewellery is something they should aspire to. And I don't think we want to raise young women who think that ending up as eye jewellery for men like you is an ambition. A cool ambition. Any more than growing up in 1967, growing up believing that it's okay for your husband to slap you around.
James, say that to Naomi Campbell or Kate Moss. They seem to have done okay out of being eye jewellery. So what's to say that other women can't do the same? Well, no one's
calling for. Okay, well, you asked me a question. I can't answer it if you keep talking.
Sorry.
Okay, so the comparison between grid girls and supermodels is the one that you're making. Because aspiring to be one of the most successful and well-paid women on the planet doesn't seem to me to be the same as aspiring to be an umbrella holder on a Formula One grid.
Yeah, but James, you're comparing chalk and cheese.
No, you are, mate. You're comparing Naomi Campbell to some woman in lederhosen carrying an umbrella around for Nico Rosenberg.
But Naomi Campbell would have had to start somewhere, as anybody.
I think she could have ended up a suit. So, okay, I understand. You're suggesting that if it wasn't for grid girls, there wouldn't be any supermodels?
But they're making... No, I'm not saying that, but they're making a career choice. Nobody's forcing them into it.
And that's what we said about
slave
society defining the choices. That bit was pretty clear. The idea is that aspiring to be eye jewellery for men like you is something that should be either encouraged or discouraged. I would discourage it. Formula One agree with me. Aspiring to be a supermodel seems to me to be rather different. And you could, I suppose...
No, it's not, because it's the same thing, James. It's still being eye jewellery for men.
It's about power as well, isn't it?
Serving and titillating, whatever you were saying.
It's about power, because supermodels are selling clothes to women.
Really.
Supermodels are selling clothes to women. What are grid girls selling?
Well, they're adding the element of glamour and looking beautiful to that sporting environment.
Yes, so they're not like supermodels at all.
I don't think it's good or bad.
Well, you did a minute ago. You didn't just say PC gone mad with a straight face, did you?
Because, well, James, look, I'm talking because I'm saying it from the perspective that I've actually met them and spoken to them and had actually quite in-depth conversation with them.
That's absolutely great, but let's focus on the words that you use. What does political correctness mean?
Girls in China, but all over the place.
I heard you the first time. What does political correctness mean?
Well, this is pro-feminist agenda, really, that seems to be forced upon everybody.
What does feminist mean?
Well, James, you're attacking me, right?
I'm asking you questions about the words you've just used, so you can pick either political correctness or feminist and tell me what you understand those words to mean.
Well, there should be elements of political correctness, I agree.
What does it mean?
In this case, it's some...
What do you mean when you use that phrase?
Trying to make everybody totally equal, which sadly in society will never ever
How
happen.
on earth is getting rid of grid girls trying to make everybody completely equal?
Yeah, but James, men and women, they're different. You can't say everybody has to be homogenous.
Nobody has, Adam. Somebody has said, what does political correctness mean?
Well, you're asking me to define something that's in the dictionary, James.
No, I'm asking you to define the phrase you just used. It's not really unkind of me. Or we can, if you're not comfortable telling me what you meant when you said political correctness gone mad, you could tell me what you meant when you said feminist, as a sounding negative.
Well, I do think there is that element to do with this decision that Liberty Media have taken. Like I say, it's a pretty trivial subject, but I think it's representative of what's happening in society.
So no. What does feminist mean when you use it like that? When you say it's a pro-feminist thing, what do you mean by that?
Well, I think it's this notion that women are not equal to men in society. I think in many ways women actually have more rights than men.
What about on the Formula One grid? How many men are employed?
I've had a conversation with Maria de Villota. She's passed away, unfortunately. She was a Formula One driver. Susie Stoddart, she was a Formula One driver.
That's two people.
Women aren't given opportunities to be as equal to the men in a sport such as Formula One.
I can,
I
Adam.
agree, it's predominantly...
I can. But you just said it yourself. Actually, I'll just be quiet. You're right. You're arguing with yourself now. It's quite fun.
I'm not.
You are.
Okay, James.
Any more on what political correctness means?
James, you're reverting back to the same
I'm just asking you to
dialogue.
define a phrase that you used, because whenever I ask people what they mean by that, they fall apart. And I don't mean to be rude, although sometimes I enjoy pointing out people's peculiar positions. I don't hold you responsible for it, because how many times, Adam, would you estimate you've heard the phrase PC gone mad?
Loads of times.
And how many times have you stopped to wonder what it means?
Well, I suppose it defines an underlying sentiment. Maybe it's not the right definition to use. But
so next time you hear it, take a moment and wonder what it means.
Okay.
That's all I'm doing. Because it seems to me to mean, in your mouth, very, very little.
What would you define the sentiment as, then?
Well, I don't know what sentiment you think you're describing with the words that you can't define.
The frustration that people...
feel that we're putting too much effort into promoting equality.
When there is, in fact, plenty of equality in society.
Says a man.
James. Would I feel that my daughter has any less equality than my son?
Well, let's wait until she's born. Let's wait until she's born, okay? And then maybe count the FTSE 100s, count the Formula One drivers, count the pretty much any profession you want, except, as you pointed out yourself with your reference to supermodels, the professions that depend almost entirely upon physical attributes. And then get back to me and tell me whether or not you feel your daughter has the same opportunities as your son. And then after we've done that, and I wish you all the very best for her imminent birth, we can see whether she's got a better idea of what political correctness means than you and every other person I have ever spoken to who uses it casually and comfortably as a pejorative without knowing what it means. Because I'll tell you what it means. It means stop trying to be nice to each other.
So the Spectator, the Tory Bible as it's sometimes referred to, is saying lead or go this week in its edition. Lead or go is their message to Theresa May. She, in response, in a sense, not literally in response, but at the same time, to be more accurate, she reveals that EU citizens arriving during the Brexit transition phase won't have the same rights as those who are already here or come here before that transition period begins, i.e. before we formally leave the European Union. Do you interpret that as a show of strength from Theresa May, or is it simply, as my guest was saying a moment ago, Catherine Bearder, the Liberal Democrat MEP, is it merely serving the right wing of her party? 0345 6060 973, the number to call. You can text 84850 or tweet at LBC. Dave has called from Hornchurch. Hi, Dave.
Hi, good afternoon. The trouble is that the Liberal lady, does she not realise, I mean, I don't want to keep labouring the point when I talk to these people, they lost the referendum. Now, in March 2019, officially we're going to be out of the EU. They've got all this nonsense being talked about, transitional periods and everything else. But I think Mrs May is laying down a marker here, because otherwise we're going to have, at the moment, there's roughly about 125,000 EU citizens coming into this country every year. 125,000. It's 50% of the total immigrants coming in. So obviously, if we keep having these transitional periods, if we have another 2 years, that's another 250,000. So we can't. What she's trying to do is lay down a marker. I believe she's trying to lay down a marker to say, no, the rules won't be the same because we won't be in the EU anymore.
And regardless of the fact that lots else is the same during the transition period, you think it's vital, do you, that this isn't?
I think we've got to. I think she's laying down a marker, quite frankly. I think what we've got to do, we after March 2019, we will not be in the EU anymore. So the situation is changed, and that's what she's saying. The situation will be changed. We're not in it anymore. Look, the Liberal lady, if you'd asked her a straight question, which you know the answer to this anyway, do you think we should remain in the EU? She would answer, yes, we do. Because
yes, she would.
The Liberal, that's right. And the Liberal Party are obviously the only party 100% for staying in
SNP?
the EU.
SNP as well.
Say again?
SNP are.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, okay, that's fair enough.
They're
But
a pretty
at the end,
substantial heft of Westminster these days, aren't they?
Well, I still talk about England. One of these days we might not have to deal with them either. But at the end of the day,
Dave.
the problem is...
Dave.
Yes, go on then.
Show some respect to your fellow man.
I am. I'm going to show some respect now. I'm going to say in 2015... the SNP got 1.5 million votes and got 50-odd MPs. The Greens got 1 million and got 1 MP, and UKIP got 4 million, nearly 4 times as many, and we got 1 MP. At the end of the day, at the end of March 2019, it's going to be a real mess. It's going to be very interesting the next year or two, because we are going to be out. That's what we voted for, wasn't it?
Yeah.
We voted to come out. Now, you can't keep on and on and on about saying, well, look, everybody who comes after this transitional period, another 250,000, well, they can all bring in their mums, dads, everything else. It's a bit like Trump's been saying in
But they're not. No, but the thing is, they're not bringing in their mums, dads or anything else because they don't have to. Because if their mum and dad wants to come to Britain, they can do so freely under EU rules.
At the moment.
Yeah, so they're not typically bringing in their mums and dads, are they? They're typically very young people travelling and working.
Look, at the end of the day, the borough where I live in, we've got tremendous problems. And as I said, with sort of 8 and 10 people living in a house, it's very difficult if you've got neighbours with 8 or 10 people living in the house next door.
I grew up in a house with 9 people in it. We were very happy and respectful and had great relationships with our neighbours. Still do.
We don't really want to go back to Victorian times, do we? Mr. Khan, our beloved mayor, has now said. Do you like that? He is now. Look, he's
Tell
now
you what,
said,
Dave. You should ask for your money back from that charm school they sent you to.
Well, he's just said he's got no problems with anybody building things in their back garden for people to live in. Well, quite frankly, I don't want to go back to those times. I come from a time where we lived with me mum and dad, me nanny and granddad, and half a dozen other people living in the house. We've moved on. We've improved. We don't want to go backwards, do we?
All right, Dave. Thank you. Dave, powering the nation forwards. Thank you, Dave in Hornchurch. Ed in Corby, hello.
Hello, Sheila. First time I'm talking to you. I think Theresa May is definitely right, completely right. I mean, I've listened to a lot of your callers today, and, you know, they're saying, oh, they're treating Europe badly and we're treating Europe. When is it going to stop? I mean, I voted to leave. I only voted to leave, not for immigration or anything else. I voted to leave to try and secure our laws instead of having someone else in another country telling us we can't do this, we can't do that. You know, that's why I left. But I think she's absolutely right. And it's got to, you know, we've got to sort of put it somewhere that we're going to put this block and make them, you know, apply to come in. We've got to do it, otherwise we're just going to be overrun.
And do you think the idea that this will put off people we need is a nonsense, or is there something in it?
I think it's a nonsense, because if the people we need have got the qualifications, they won't have any problem getting in, Sheila. They won't have any problem getting in. If they've got the right criteria, they won't have any problem getting in.
Well, what if they're needed in the farming industry, for example, and they just stop coming because they're not going to have any residency rights, they're not going to feel welcome, they're going to feel unsafe, and then we end up with farmers not having the labour that they need. Well, if that happens, I don't know that will happen, but if that happens, what do we do?
Right, okay, Sheila. I mean, I'm 63 years of age, and I can remember before we went even in the common market, as it was called then, and our vegetables were picked then. We had our vegetables picked by farming people then. In 74, they were still picked then. So why won't they be picked now again?
All right, Ed in Corby, thank you. Joseph in Bermondsey, hello.
Good afternoon to you, Sheila. You've taken a few calls ago from a bloke who called himself a Liberal Democrat and mentioning that they hold all the cards and we have nothing to play with. Now, what rubbish is that man? What planet is he living on? Let's examine a few quick facts. They've got record youth unemployment and overall unemployment in all the Mediterranean countries. Greece, Portugal, his own, Spain, Italy. They come in here looking for work. So much... he mentions we are a poor, independent country with no clout. Point number 2, who's going to fill our 10 billion hole when we get our money back? We don't need the European Union giving us some of our money back to do various projects in this country. There is an enormous black hole. Juncker is already panicking. He's gone around and said to Sweden and Holland and other countries, you are going to have to fill our black hole. Point number 3, and this is very important. It is true we are getting more and more people from non-Euro countries. Why is that? That has not been raised in this country by UKIP or anybody else. Right? The reason is obvious for anybody. But
it's too busy having leadership elections, Joseph.
At all costs. You with me? They're going for growth at all costs, and it's a false economy because the people who are coming over here on low wages are being subsidised by the government, the taxpayer. When are people going to wake up? This is something Nigel Farage said many years ago, and he's been proved right.
Can I ask you, specifically on the question of Theresa May, this announcement about EU citizens, is it her way of saying, I won't back down in the face of pressure from the EU 27? Is it real?
She's weak. It's not that our position is weak. All we want really, and let's face facts, they need trade with us, we need trade with them. Let's get on with it and do it without all the obstacles and whatnot. As in the original EEC, they need our trade, we need their trade. That's all it is. Trade crosses all boundaries. Trade speaks all languages. You don't need customs unions and a single market and all the ad hoc that goes on with it. Everybody needs to trade. It doesn't have to be difficult.
Well, it's the manner in which we trade and the frameworks in which we trade that people are questioning, Joseph, and whether one is more efficient and advantageous to Britain, brackets, staying in the EU in many people's view, or the new one, will just slow the whole process down and make us less economically viable. Those are the fears around customs union and single market issues. But thanks for your call, Joseph. Thanks for your list. Jane in Lewisham, hi.
Hello, Sheila. People that are settled here, of course, they must stay here. But trade, I can't understand why they keep going on about trade, because
why?
Trade is nothing to do with the European Parliament. Make no mistake about it. The manufacturers are staying quiet now. They're not even listening. They can't be bothered to listen. They're too busy. But when it comes to it, the manufacturers are going to completely override the European Parliament, and trade is going to happen, and that's it. They just won't listen to the European Parliament. And as far as like our farm workers, I used to work on farms. We used to. That was our holiday, working on farms, and we loved it. And the schools are so horrible now. They should take the kids out of school a couple of months early.
And send them up a few chimneys while we're at it. Jane, thank you. Jane in Lewisham, tweet at LBC. Loads of you doing that just now, and you've been tweeting in your droves, actually, right from the very beginning. So let me read a few more of these. If you spray a homeless person with water in cold weather, then they could easily potentially die from hypothermia. This is most certainly not the answer. The spikes look positively genteel compared to this, says Ed in Plymouth. Alex in Pimlico, hello there.
Afternoon, Sheila. We've spoken before. You talk about this issue with Bristol, and it goes on in many places around the UK. Mm-hmm. You cut into the subject about President Roberto Duarte. Well, okay, so we in the Western civilised supposed world have done since the Second World War, the war on drugs, okay? And now, in England, what happens is the drug dealers get arrested, they get represented, they get custody, and it goes to court, smack your hands, rinse and repeat, they're out on the door, and they're doing more of it. So this rehabilitation doesn't work. What Duarte's done, and he actually was very rude to Obama, and I won't swear on there, but he was very rude, told Obama where to go and mind his own business.
I know, he's great mates with Trump.
Right, okay, yeah. But he's doing the only real war on drugs, right? And I know people from the Philippines, from downtown Manila, who go there regularly to see family. They tell me, and these are young girls, and they tell me, who work in a CAF, they tell me that downtown Manila is safer and quieter than it's ever been before because, yes, the police have killed 10,000 drug dealers and addicts, and there may have been some collateral damage. It may be mission creep, but it's working. It's worked. We don't like it because we're Western liberal, whatever. And what they're doing in Bristol, they've had enough. Direct action is the only thing that's going to work for them, and that's what they're doing. Like it or not, they've had enough of pushing people away, the police going around, the council workers. Nothing works. And some of these people don't want to be off the street as well, Sheila.
Are you telling me that if you saw a policy in this country where homeless people who were drug addicts were shot dead to clear them away, you wouldn't be against that policy?
I didn't say about the homeless people. I would say dealers. Either we
no, but the problem with
or you kill the drug dealers. You're never going to solve it.
No, but they're not just. They're not just killing drug dealers. I spoke to a Filipino that I met who's working with homeless people on the streets of Manila, who has told me that the majority of people being shot dead in this policy are simply homeless addicts.
They're getting rid of other people as well, and that's the collateral damage, unfortunately. But, well, I know, I'm just saying to you, it's a different way.
Alex,
it's a different part of the world.
God, what is going through your head? No, I'm asking you about this part of the world.
Yeah. Okay, so you tell me how you're going to solve this issue, because they've decided, they've tried to be nice, move people on, do X, Y, and Z, outreach people, counsellors, police, and it's rinse and repeat. So what does the person do who's trying to have a nice shop business, etc.? He has to take direct action because nothing else is working.
Up to and including...
Hats off to them, Sheila.
Up to and including shooting people?
No, we're not doing that in England, are we, unfortunately? So, therefore, I thought the drug addicts, the drug dealers need to be shot dead. That's full stop, because you're never going to solve
Yeah,
this
but
issue.
listen.
Or decriminalise.
All right, but Alex, let me speak. You can't just conflate homeless people sleeping on the streets with drug dealers that you want to shoot dead. You can't just have a policy whereby you think, listen, throw water over them, whoever they are, or worse still, shoot them, whoever they are. You know that's insane, Alex.
I'm not talking about shooting homeless people.
You just said, unfortunately, we don't.
No. We don't do that here. We don't do that.
I know, and you said, unfortunately, we don't do that here.
Okay, right. Well, that's a bit of figure of speech. But the truth of the matter is, legalise the drugs or decriminalise it. Let the government and the health service let everyone go around being a zombie if they wish and pay for the privilege and don't get bad trips and die. Or you have to do what the Philippines do. There's none of this nonsense war on drugs. The mayor goes jumping in with the police in the morning, smashing down some drug crack doors. The media all lap up.
Oh, okay. Enough of Alex, I think. Thank you for your call, though, Alex in Pimlico. It's only polite to say thank you.
Yeah, I'll share some of the Daily Mail's coverage of it with you, because I've made no secret of what I feel about this newspaper and their role in encouraging far-right tendencies in this country. So just to sort of highlight some of these facts reported in court in a way that would be immune to perhaps some of the things you could accuse me of if I was reading from The Guardian, perhaps. Osborne, who was not technically competent, used phones and laptops belonging to his estranged wife Sarah Andrews and children to search Google, Twitter and Facebook. A fortnight before the attack, he asked Mrs. Andrews to set up a Twitter account for him so he could follow the far-right extremists. After following Franson and Robinson, that's the woman from Britain First and the Stephen Yaxley Lennon, he received emails asking him to attend a march in Manchester and contribute to a campaign legal fund. It always ends with a begging bowl with these outfits, the far-right people. Always. I presume with the Islamo-fascists as well, they're always trying to raise money, but it's incredible how quickly the begging bowl comes out, asking credulous followers to give them money, which is preferable to, of course, any of the other paths of action that they could follow. At the heart of these activities was the Twitter account of Robinson, who he searched for 34 times in the days before his attack. Twitter deleted the accounts of Franson and fellow Britain First leader Paul Golding in December after their posts were shared with millions by Donald Trump. But Robinson, arguably Britain's leading far-right poster boy, continues to command almost 400,000 followers on the platform. You see, he's not Britain's leading far-right poster boy. Britain's leading far-right poster boy is the boy who unveils posters espousing far-right policies. But because Robinson is a little rough around the edges and not possessed of sort of clothes that he's based upon his idea of what a gamekeeper might look like in the 1950s. He's Britain's far-right poster boy. It can't be people that went to private school. It can't be people that the Daily Mail high command consider to be a bit like them. It has to be Robinson. And I know that he cropped up in court a lot more than anybody else. But that lazy labelling, far-right poster boy, I believe he's a bad influence upon this country. I believe he is an extremist, but I do not believe he deserves to be singled out from the people who have a rather more middle-class demeanour. In one message referring to the Manchester bombing, Robinson wrote, "Where was the day of rage after the terrorist attacks? All I saw was lighting candles." And in another he wrote, "Anger when a Muslim bombed our kids. We were told not to look back in anger." Osborne appeared to parrot these lines in his own propaganda letter, asking where was the public outrage at the Muslim sex grooming scandal. And do you know what, actually, while we're on the subject, and while I'm probably talking more and listening less than I usually would, because this really does intrigue me, didn't David Cameron call Jeremy Corbyn a terrorist sympathiser? So it's a very, very loaded word to use in the House of Commons. I'm pretty sure I've heard senior Conservatives describe Jeremy Corbyn thus. And Jeremy Corbyn, of course, was on Darren Osborne's hit list. Something that surprised even me, with my well-documented disdain for the Daily Mail and everything it's done to this country, was the fact that they were having a pop at Lily Allen while this trial was still unfolding. And Lily Allen found out from newspaper coverage that this man had addressed notes to her that were found in his van by the police. The police didn't tell her. She found out after it had come out in court. There was no warning, and it didn't even stop. Knowing that, because if I knew it, they jolly well did. They still ran a couple of stories in the course of the last 2 weeks designed to whip up more hatred against Lily Allen. It's just a young mother in her 30s. It's just nuts. But to try to pass it all off on Tommy Robinson, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. Chris is in Reading. Chris, what do you think?
Well, basically, I think a lot of it is also government and liberal media's fault, and I'll tell you for why. The Bradford girls and the Rochdale girls, basically, if the people that had attacked her had been dealt with correctly, this wouldn't have gone as far. The programme wouldn't have happened. And basically...
So you realise this is the equivalent to someone ringing me and saying if Britain wasn't bombing Iraq, we wouldn't have had July the 7th.
Well, let me put it a different way.
No, let's go with the way you've put it. You are essentially justifying terrorism.
Well, I'm not, because the guy is an angry nutter, and he got angry.
So were the July the 7th bombers. But a lot of people would have rung me back in the day and said, you need to look at the foreign policy, and you're saying you need to look at the grooming events, which were prosecuted. I'm not patronising you now, but I don't think you haven't read the report.
They allowed it to happen. It was allowed to happen for a long time. The programme went onto the media.
And so you're aware of the court case unfolding at the moment involving a football coach. You're aware of the child sex abuse inquiry that's looking at pretty much every private school in the country. You're aware of the swimming coaches. But why only care about this one?
Shelagh was retweeted that the Rochdale girls should keep their mouths shut. She is in the opposition. Do you not think that's going to annoy people?
It annoys me. If it's as you reported, it annoys me. But you're now justifying terrorism, Chris. Stop.
I'm not justifying it, mate. I'm not.
Yes, you are.
I'm not justifying. I'm not.
Well, why have you mentioned it, Chris?
Well, because I'm saying that and some people will get very annoyed and act upon it, and most people won't.
Yes. So what are you saying about the some people? Why have you mentioned this stuff if you're not in some way suggesting that that's the real cause of terrorism?
Well, no, because you're suggesting that the right wing are causing it. They're just reacting.
No, I'm reading out the court. I'm reading out the court report.
No, well, so that makes it absolutely right, does it?
Yes.
We don't have to question.
If we're discussing what happened in court, then reading out the court report is pretty reliable. Yes. So let's just examine why you don't recognise that you are now the, if you will, the right-wing equivalent of the Muslim caller telling me that you can't really look at the July the 7th attacks or September the 11th without looking at Western foreign policy in the Middle East. And I used to get very cross with them because it seems to me that there's never any justification for going out and murdering innocent people. You phone me up to tell me that there is a justification.
No, there's no justification for it.
Would you like to apologise on his behalf?
No.
Why not?
Because I don't kill anybody.
Would you like to apologise as a fellow white person?
No.
Why not?
Because I didn't do anything.
But whenever there's an Islamist attack, I'm bombarded by people telling me that all Muslims need to apologise or they need to. What are you doing at the moment to root out far right ideology in your community, Chris?
Yeah, but
it's not a trick question. What do you do? Because you clearly know a lot about it, because you phone me up with all these details. What are you doing at the moment to combat far-right ideology that could radicalise people like this?
What are you doing?
Talking to you, mate. Talking to you.
Why didn't you go about no charge?
Because I'm not interested in a Labour MP's Twitter account. I'm interested in the actions of a murderer.
No, that's right. Of course you wouldn't go on about no charge, because it's not in your... No charge retweeted that the girls in Rotherham should keep their mouths shut.
Well, that's disgusting.
Donald Trump.
That's disgusting, Chris.
A programme on it.
A programme on a Labour MP's tweet when we're talking about someone who's been murdered.
About Donald Trump.
Okay, so I'll ask you again.
You all about Donald Trump, mate, didn't you?
I do talk a lot about Donald Trump. Yes, he's the leader of the free world. Naz Shah is a recently arrived Labour MP who has clearly, if you're telling me something correct, she's done something incredibly stupid. I agree with you. Now answer my question.
Why haven't you done a programme on it, mate?
Well, because no one's going to disagree, Chris.
No, because the Liberals don't want to, do they?
Now, Chris, here's the thing, right? OK, let's do it this way. Here is, if Chris has described this Twitter activity correctly, I think it's utterly disgusting. Ring me now if you don't. That's how it would work. Everybody thinks it's disgusting, Chris. You've got a victim mentality.
To be fair, no. The only person who mentioned it was Majid Noir, and fair play to him because he's got the balls to talk about this stuff.
But we're talking about it now. I'm agreeing with everything you've said, Chris. What is wrong with your ears?
Well, no, because you're trying to twist it that I'm a terrorist.
No, I'm asking what you've done to tackle the far-right ideology that you have such an understanding of within your own community. What are you doing to battle this radicalisation process?
No, what are the government doing about it? What are the government
not enough.
Look, have you seen the Stacey Dooley in Luton?
Not enough, Chris. Mate, I can't go through your back catalogue of recorded programmes and Twitter analysis. I'm asking you what you have done.
Nonsense.
Please let me ask a question that you'll
answer.
answer.
What have I done about right-wing radical?
Yes.
No, I'll tell you what, I didn't know about Tommy Robinson until the Manchester attack, and I'll tell you why.
What have you done? What have you done, though?
I haven't done anything.
Why not?
It's not for me to do, mate.
But you know so much about it. You're so clear on what causes it. Surely you could help fight this radicalisation process.
22 children and adults get blown up, and the mosque that guy went to actually said that Western society is immoral.
So you're justifying it again, and you don't even realise.
I'm not justifying it, mate.
So why are you telling me about this stuff then?
So what I'm saying is the liberal media and the government haven't done
What is the liberal media, Chris? When you say the liberal media? Yes, but I know me. But who else?
Well, Channel 4 News, the very day afterwards.
Channel 4 News?
Channel 4 News was saying the atmosphere's amazing. It's like a festival, like we don't have enough festivals in this country.
Chris, what are you talking about now? The day after what?
Channel 4 News, after the Manchester bomb, they were saying what an amazing atmosphere it was.
An atmosphere of recovery and peace. That they were interviewing people who were there and reflecting on what they were finding.
No, not the parents, mate. The parents were quiet.
Well, I've had the parents in this studio. I've had Martin Hett's mum and dad sitting here describing to me how the one thing that... Pardon?
Not all of them. No one.
I can't have all of them in the studio. I can only invite the ones in that have asked to come in. Chris, I apologise that I can't issue an invitation to everybody. So apart from me and Channel 4 News, Chris, I'm not gonna have a row with you. I want to get inside your thinking. I don't want to fight with you or shout at you. What else is the liberal media? When you say the liberal media, I mean, on this programme, with regard to the grooming gangs that you mentioned in the north of England, we went in first and we went in hard on that story. And we have repeatedly shared, I say we, I'm sounding like the Queen, I have repeatedly shared my theory that it has a lot to do with entrenched misogynistic attitudes that are inculcated in cultures that are coming from specific parts of the Middle East. I can say that out loud a billion times. Is that liberal media?
It's also an underlying sort of awareness. I mean, I know, for instance...
Is that liberal media, Chris? When I say all that stuff about misogyny and inculcation and it having cultural and geographical roots, is that liberal media or is that stuff you like to hear?
No, basically, it's the fact that so much is just whitewashed.
It's not, though, is it? But you've just used me as your best example of liberal media, and your best example of things being ignored is something I've talked about repeatedly in the most castigating of terms. So something's gone wrong between my mouth and your ear, and something went wrong between...
Well, I don't listen to every single programme you do.
Between Darren Old... No, you're too busy looking at Naz Shah's Twitter account and recording Channel 4 News. So we'll ask again... Let me ask again... What are you doing to combat this far-right ideology that you have quite a good understanding of?
No, the far-right, people like Tommy Robinson, are a reaction to his upbringing and to what has happened in this country and the backlash to it. So the fault is the government not tackling it.
OK. Not tackling what, Chris?
Not tackling things like Sharia law being trying.
So again, you think that this act of terrorism is a result of something other than the terrorist. It's a result, just in the same way that people say the bombing in the Middle East was what caused September the 11th and July the 7th. You think that Darren Osborne becoming a terrorist was a result of things that Muslims do?
Sikhs that I know of that are not happy with the situation in this country, educated.
And that is Darren Osborne, mate. It's just a question of where that unhappiness takes you. It's 10:51. I'm 6 minutes late for the break, Chris. I hope you feel you've had a fair crack of the whip. And just on a very personal level, you can just say what you like about me, but you have to also at some point recognise reality. So the grooming gangs that you used as your example of where the liberal media are somehow letting the country down were covered on this programme pretty much from the moment Andrew Norfolk started reporting it in the Times, and the amount of complaints we got about concluding and stating that there were cultural and geographical roots to this behaviour. The line I always use, my friend, is how the hell I can just about get my head around one scumbag doing this, but how the hell could you turn to your colleagues or your mates and say, oh, do you want to join in? That speaks to me of a community problem. I can say it until I'm blue in the face, Chris, and people like you will never hear it. And that, I'm afraid, is a sign of being radicalised.
Charlie in Beckenham, hi. Hello, Charlie, can you hear us?
Hello there.
Hello, you're live on LBC. What do you want to say?
Basically, it's very simple. I say simple. It just really frustrates me that how bad this country has got to when you think to yourself, you can't say a certain word. You read in the papers, you see on the news that, the council asked these people to take Union Jacks down and the St George's flag down because other communities don't like it. Now, it never used to be like that in the 50s and 60s. It's just getting out of hand. You can't say a certain word, otherwise you're racist. It just really frustrates me.
But do you equate that with somebody like Darren Osborne openly saying he wanted to kill Muslims and he hated them and they were all rapists and all whatever else he claimed they were? That's different. That should be tackled.
The thing is, nothing's ever said so much as this case where he killed one Muslim person. What about the Muslims that killed the people on, at Borough Market?
Oh, I'm sorry. That's whataboutery on the day that a man has been jailed for 43 years minimum for trying to murder and succeeded in murdering one man and trying to murder many other men and women. So you don't get to say what about, Charlie, I'm afraid, and stay on the line. But thanks for your call all the same. Charlie in Beckenham.
Karen is in Purley with a view on this. Is Theresa May doing the right thing? Is this what we
darling, listen, I'm sick and tired of all these quango types. All these people that are speaking, like my son's age, 44, 45, 46 or 48, they weren't even around when times were very good, okay? When everyone was working, we didn't have the immigration problem. Not that's the main reason. But at the end of the day, I've been watching what's been going on. This country's still making money. I watch the stocks and shares, and things are not bad, okay? It's just there's too many negative people that want to stay in because they're making more money outside of this country. But at the end of the day, when we're out, we've got that money back on a daily basis, which we've been paying you, Germany or Europe.
Well, we promised to pay $39 billion just for a transition deal. They're going to hit us pretty hard. No matter which forecast you look at, Karen, it doesn't make any difference. We are going to take a hit. You may not care whether it's 2%, 5% or 8%.
Yes, no, but listen, darling, it's not that. We just need to get out. They will not get this 39 million. Boris said no money. They've had enough of us for 44 years. They've drained this country. And I'm telling you, once we've left on that date, I give it 3 to 6 months, the euro will be worth nothing.
All right, Karen,
nothing.
Thank you very much indeed. 03, yeah, God bless. 0345 6060 973. Bob's in Raynham. How are you, Bob?
Hi there. Yes, good to see you.
Good. All right, Bob.
I've already got a lot out of Brexit that I wanted, that I voted for.
What'd you get?
I watched my government over the last 40 years go from a government that was of the people, that could speak to the people. We had giants in there compared to what we've got now. And now we've just left with a load of bureaucrats, the petty bourgeois. They're all the same club. But since Brexit, there's been a big churn. I think there's about 150 of those MPs that have gone now. And we've got new people in. So we've got new people, new things, new faults. So that's good. And now we can go forward and become a trading nation with the world again.
Yeah, so you're quite positive about what's ahead for us, despite every single economic forecast suggesting there'll be a hit.
What is 2% of GDP? How does that affect me? It doesn't affect me.
How old are you, Bob?
Our GDP is skewed by the fact that we include housing in it. So what? I mean, houses are worth nothing.
How old are you?
I'm 60.
And, if you're 20, 25, 30, the argument is often that the young are going to be existing with what we older people have all voted for.
I was prepared for rationing. If we'd had to have rationing if we came out, I would have been happy with it.
Come on.
It doesn't bother me at all. As long as we were able to get a government that actually got us back into producing things, that got us back into...
Well, manufacturing's not going to suddenly come back to the top of our particular list. Financial services is what we're good at nowadays. Manufacturing's gone.
Change our industry anyway because of robotisation. It is simple now. You buy a factory in a package. You get the robots, you get the machines. You don't need to train as many people, and you get a better. It's not GDP. It's our efficiency, how much we can produce. We are very, very inefficient.
Well, we're still very, very low on productivity. I grant you. What was the number one reason that you voted to leave the EU, Bob?
I did indeed.
What was the number one reason?
My number one reason was because I was dissatisfied with the government and it decided that it was inefficient, that it was run by a small clique of people, a petty bourgeois that this country had never had before, and they were hiding behind Europe.
So it was a protest vote?
It was.
All right, Bob.
I believe that it's good for the future, good for the country.
Good for you, Bob. Thank you very much indeed. 28 minutes past 4 is the time. What do you make of what Bob said there? Mark's in West Hampstead with a view on this. Mark, go ahead. Thanks for calling.
There's going to be civil unrest if we don't get Brexit. And let me give you a quick analogy. Imagine a tennis match, and imagine they play the match, and basically the winner wins. And then all of a sudden, Sue Barker comes on the microphone. Just a minute, everyone in the crowd. We're going to play the match again. And what we're going to do this time is we're going to change the weather. We're going to alter a couple of bats. We're going to do something with the balls. We're going to let the grass grow. We're going to basically... possibly blindfold one of the opponents, one of the people in the match, and then we're going to get a different result. Imagine what the crowd would do.
Well, I mean, they'd immediately take Sue Barker away. Quite right, too, Mark. Quite right. I mean, she made Roger Federer cry all those years ago, and, I saw him cry again last weekend. But a brilliant tennis analogy. The fact is that one side won and one side lost, and for everybody that says that it was close, look, I understand it was close, but I agree with you, Mark. The result is over. So Theresa May has, does she not, an impossible job in keeping everybody happy.
Yeah, it's about immigration. I'm an investigative filmmaker, and I'm undercover at the moment. And this is not racist. I'm married to a foreigner. I've got a mixed race son, etc. But I'm in a position at the moment. Once they wear what there's housing, and the smuggling refugee families into this country. Quite rightly, we signed up to a treaty. We have to do this into suburbia, and they're given semis. Now, what's happening is these big Jewish banks buying up a lot of these semis, and they're making them into 6 studio flats, and there's white English people being moved into them. So
are you going to commit to putting this on film and putting it into the public domain rather than just saying it?
I'm doing it now. I've jailed over 68 people. I've done a lot of stuff for Panorama and Inside Out and things. I'm doing it, but the BBC, you probably know, put the head in the hands every time I come back with footage.
Mark, it sounds like some sort of anti-Semitic conspiracy that you're talking about here. I have to challenge you. I have to be honest.
No. I maybe shouldn't have said Jewish banks. The banks, many banks are funding semis in suburbia, and they're converting them into 6 studios. So the council are waiving.
Mark, we're actually going to leave you there because we're a little uncomfortable on that on that territory. You know, we have to sort of publish this work and make decisions on the hoof, and our decision is to cut you off, I'm afraid. Mark, thank you very much indeed for the call. Just quickly, Ian in Northern Ireland. Hi, Ian. Go ahead.
Hi, Andrew. Yeah, I rang you in the back of the Labour MP's Project Fear statement of...
Stephen Doughty started off the hour.
I'm glad you remembered his name because it meant nothing to me, really.
All right.
Where he claimed, as the Project Fear team seems to claim, that it threatens the Northern Ireland peace process. And Eamon from Belfast, I would be opposite to him in that I staunchly voted Brexit, and I would do so again. Most of my friends voted Brexit. Some of them voted Remain, but those that voted Remain are quite happy to row in behind the government for them to secure a good Brexit deal. And frankly, I don't think I was willing to give Theresa May the time and the space to do it. And as time has gone on, I've seen the bullying and the dictatorship from the EU basically stomping its authority on her rather than her stomping the UK's authority on the EU by saying, this is what we want, you give us that, or we'll walk away, no deal, thank you very much.
All right.
Because I do think we can stand on our own. It doesn't have to be splendid isolation like years ago in history, but I think we could do it on our own without the EU gravy train trying to pull us along.
Ian, thank you very much indeed. What's Theresa May to do? Joan's in Putney. Hello, Joan.
good afternoon, Andrew.
Hi, go
I'm
ahead.
certainly not getting what I voted for. And I just wish for once a programme about Brexit would not be just about the economy. Because when I voted for other things, like independence, like democracy, like telling our young people, don't stay in a relationship when the other party has control over your money and your borders and who you do business with, and that your independence is precious. And you have a chance to have it, and you must take it. And all the problems that are being caused by the people who are criticizing. Take, for instance, citizens' rights. When Mrs. May went to Brussels in December, she offered citizens' rights to the people here, for citizens' rights for our people in. And they said, no negotiation without notification of that. And then when it came to business, they want, why should our independence be an impediment to mutually beneficial free trade? And look at our parliament. They voted 6-1 for the referendum. They weren't clever enough to persuade the majority of people who voted to vote Remain. And as soon as the result was known, they started tabling amendments in order to subvert, delay, change. Now, how can this be right when our parliament that voted for it holds the democratic process of Brexit in contempt? What is going on in this country? They are guilty of not doing their duty, a dereliction of duty. But these don't feature. All they talk about is trade, trade, trade.
Well, no, I agree. 2%, 5%, 8% GDP is what we see on forecasts and Brexit impact assessments and from various different sources. I agree. I think there is more at stake than that. That's not just numbers. Perhaps I'm being naive. But, Joan, thank you. Strong view there. Bill's in Faversham. Hello, Bill.
Hello, Andrew. Nobody ever talks about what we might lose if we were to stay, and it's always the politicians and some media people doing this routine where some of my best friends voted Brexit and all of that stuff. Yeah, we've heard all of that. A lot of the southern states of the EU have got financial problems. And a lot of the states in the EU wouldn't dare run a referendum like we did. As Macron said, if they run one tomorrow, France would vote out.
Yes, I did think that was interesting. It was only a couple of weeks ago that he was here and he was talking about a bespoke free trade deal that we might be able to do. I wonder if that's been kicked into the long grass now that he's not on our side of the channel.
Indeed. And also China, America and Japan have promised us huge deals when we leave. They've said, don't worry, basically we'll take care of you.
Trust them, Bill?
Pardon?
You trust them? Trust anybody?
I do. I absolutely do. Because they just want to make money. They're business people. They want to make money. They won't set us up. I would trust them more than the EU by about 100-fold.
All right.
And the currency, as one of your earlier callers said, will dip as soon as we leave. They're trying to hang on by their nails to us, and we're not going to stay.
All right, well, thank you for that, Bill, and thank you for all the callers that are. We're going to change tack now. A couple of texts to finish off with. Nigel Lander made this point a few minutes ago. Andrew, funny how quiet it's gone on getting back our fishing rights. You haven't heard that for a while. I'm sure that will come back. There will be big problems for her if they try to turn the wish of the people around. Civil unrest, says Steve. And Andrew, the price of freedom is always high, says Mary. Thank you very much.